welcome to our live. We're going to be talking about, well, I guess first of all, we should explain who we are. My name is Tom Bilyeu.
I'm Lisa Bilyeu.
And we are the founders of Impact Theory. We're also co-founders of Quest Nutrition. And we're going to be talking about being a couple during quarantine and COVID-19. We've been married, ironically, for 19 years.
No.
That's a lie.
He's lying to you guys already.
Right from the jump.
So we've been together for 19 years.
And a half.
And we've been married. We've been married for 17 years.
All true. So we're going to be talking about really tactical steps and tricks to stay happy and hopefully coming out of the quarantine even better than you went into it. And one of the things, and I promise this wasn't staged, but one of the things is to have fun, to enjoy being around each other. And one of the things that I find that people really struggle with and fail to understand is how much of your neurochemistry is under your control. And that was something that we learned really early on. So I am somebody who is very slow to get angry. But once I get angry, at least in the past, I tended to stay angry for a really long time. And so I was working so much and we had so little time together that it really ended up being problematic in our relationship because it would inevitably happen on a Saturday. We would get in some sort of fight and then I would just stay pissed off all day. And then at the end of the day, I would think, whoa, this is like some of the only time that we get to spend together during the week. And I've just spent it all being angry.
And usually it's about over something stupid.
I wouldn't even discount it like that. So there's no question
Surface level silly, right? So it's
sort
like
of.
the tea, but a lot of the time it's not actually about the tea.
So there's two elements to this. There's the tea argument, which is super powerful. We'll get to that in a second. But then there's a lot of times people get upset and they have a right to be upset and a reason to be upset. And my punchline is, even if you have a reason to be upset, even if the person really is doing something obnoxious, even in that moment, it's not going to serve you to spend time being annoyed. So while you're being quarantined, and I know a lot of people are going to be in really confined spaces, a lot of people are going to be dealing with, they've got kids and a spouse in a really confined space, and that is where it's going to get really difficult. And if you just say, oh, you're being annoyed over something stupid, don't be annoyed, people are going to say, well, okay, that works for all those other people. But for me, I really have a reason to be upset right now.
Plus, no one ever calmed down by telling them to calm down.
Hashtag truth. So what people should be focused on in those moments is, so my thesis on life is you're having a biological experience. Once you understand that you're having a biological experience and that there are what I call physiological hooks into changing your neurochemical state, which is a fancy way of saying if you do shit with your body, then you can get your mind in a different place. So what I did was I wrote myself a letter. And the letter said, hey, me, it's me. You have no ulterior motive. Because that was my thing, was always that, well, of course she's going to want to tell me not to be upset because she feels guilty for having done something to upset me. And so I was always very suspicious of her motives of trying to change my attitude, trying to make me laugh, trying to get me out of that funk. So I wrote myself that letter, and it was that I had done the research. I knew about the brain that if you force yourself to smile or laugh out loud, it is nearly impossible to stay angry. So the punchline of the letter was, right now, no matter how much you don't feel like doing it, laugh out loud. And in laughing out loud, no matter how angry you want to be, it really does shift your neurochemistry. And so I was able to go from maybe I would stay angry for 8 hours down to, I'm not joking, seconds. And just by, in the beginning, forcing myself to laugh out loud. Now, by forcing myself to laugh out loud, I realized sort of how ridiculous it was to allow myself to stay in an angry state when it was that easy to shift. And so now I don't have to force myself to laugh out loud because I know how quickly and easily you can change. And just knowing that it's that possible, knowing that my neurochemistry is that malleable alone just allows me to let it go and move into a different headspace.
And then to touch on that letter, so you always, I think you said this, when you're emotionally sober, as we call it, you start to realize, wow, that really was a waste of time. I just wasted hours and hours. I could have been having fun with my partner and we were just arguing for no reason. So when you wrote the letter, you were emotionally sober. I was emotionally sober. So we both sat there when you wrote it and you said to me, hey, babe, read this to me. I give you permission, because that's another thing. Because when you're not emotionally sober, right, things are like all rattled up. So he had to give me permission, which I made sure that he did when he was emotionally sober, to say, yes, you have every right to read this letter to me. So what I did is I grabbed the letter the very next time, and I don't even think I got through it. I just pulled it up, and you're sitting there annoyed. And let me tell you guys, it's freaking hard to do that sort of thing when you're all rattled up. So I'm all rattled up, you're all rattled up, and I'm like, oh God, I got to read this letter. So I pull it up, and I'm like, hey, me. It's me. And then just in reading that, I think we started laughing. It changed the chemistry, not, because I'm reading it in such like this really weird way, because you can tell I'm tense. So it just made us laugh. It broke it. And that was the only time I ever wrote it. But read it. But that's one thing that we always do, is when we're addressing things, always do it in an emotionally sober state, and then make agreements in that emotionally sober state, so that when you are in that emotion, you have something to go back to, like a rules of engagement, which is what we talk about a lot.
So to really put a fine point in this, so number one, do fun shit, right? You guys need to be playful. You need to have a good time. What you decide to look at and focus on, you're going to see. So if you look at and focus on how frustrating the quarantine is, if you look at and focus on what's happening to the economy, if you look at and focus on the dangers that it presents, and I'm not diminishing any of that, those are all very real things. And they warrant some amount of time and attention. But what people end up doing is they loop around that. So if you think about that, then that's going to be your obsession during the quarantine. What we're doing during the quarantine is thinking about what's the opportunity that's been created here. So whenever there's massive disruption, the only thing I can promise you is that there's tremendous opportunity that's been created in that as well. So if you're looking for that opportunity, then all of a sudden things get really interesting. So look for things that you can do to have fun. Look for ways that the quarantine's actually adding something to your life, and that's going to open these avenues for you to see something completely different. And then number two, which you just said, is rules of engagement. So why don't you explain to people what do you mean when you say create rules of engagement?
Well, if people are just joining us, guys, we are answering questions live. I'm Lisa Bilyeu. This is Tom Bilyeu. We have been together for 19 years, and have worked together for over 10 years. So we are very used to being next to each other every day, day in and day out. But even this quarantine is putting a challenge for us, which I actually personally love. I like to be challenged. I like us to kind of put all the tools and tactics we've been training for into action. But okay, going to rules of engagement, explain what rules of engagement are. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said we are answering some questions live, and so we have some questions that.
Word.
Yeah, so we should talk about this.
Okay.
And then we'll go.
Finish rules of engagement.
So rules of engagement really are just how do we talk to each other? What are the words and languages we use when something's really important? Because as we all know, we come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. So saying something to me may make me feel a very different way than if someone said something to him. So our rules of engagement are using certain words.
Defining terms.
Thank you, yeah, defining terms.
How are you going to deal when you're arguing? So is this hey, we're getting heated, do we walk away? Or do we stay and finish the fight? Do you go to bed angry? Do you not go to bed angry? Can you ever use somebody's insecurities against them? Like you need to come up with a whole list of ways of behavior. I really think that one of the stumbling blocks a lot of people have is when they hear the way that we relate to each other, they think that is so ridiculous. There's so much form and function that goes into defining words. So like to us, we know what important means. Now, if I went and said it to somebody else, it would mean something completely differently, but we've taken the time to define that. If we say, I promise you, that means something really intense in our relationship that it might not mean to somebody else. We know if we're fighting and Lisa says, I need to walk away, then I need to let her walk away, right? So we've agreed upon that ahead of time.
But just can I touch upon that for a second?
Please.
For us to discover all of this, though, guys, we had to sit down, like I said before, in an emotionally sober state with no judgment. Because I think initially it was like, well, why do you want to walk away? Well, why do you want to because I'm the one that needs the space.
That's a terrible impression of me.
I do American accent. But no, that would be terrible. I'd sound Southern if I did an American accent. But so we handle things differently. So we had to sit down with no judgment and say, I need this space, you want to have it out right there. Neither of us are right or wrong. So how do we navigate this together? Because the ultimate goal is for us to get through it. And if we both agree that's the ultimate goal, then we have to figure out a strategy together to get there.
And that was another rule of engagement, to decide those things when you're emotionally sober. We said that's a rule, and so we know to behave accordingly. All right, this is actually a great question.
Yes, we have some great. You want to read it out? Which one did you?
I was looking at that.
Yes.
One.
Okay, so guys, we are answering questions live. Drop them in the comments below. First question: how can you reconnect with your partner, argue productively, and get closer during this stressful time?
So I think this is an amazing question, and it is not easy, but it is very simple. So what we have found is incredibly liberating is people are going to have emotional reactions. Now, your emotional reaction, so going back to you're having a biological experience. Okay, what is the nature of the human brain? The nature of the human brain is just to really nutshell it here, there's the subconscious mind and then the conscious mind. So when you're in the unconscious mind, you have it's what's called the ability to process data faster and vaster. So it can handle this massive amount of data. It can process it very, very quickly, but it's only going to cough up into the conscious mind a very, very, very minute amount of that data. So the conscious mind uses language as a way to think and process, but the subconscious mind uses emotion. So once you understand that the language of the subconscious mind is emotion, you feel something, it comes on immediately, and it's about a whole lot of things coming together. I forget the exact numbers, but the ratio is something like your brain is taking in something like 2 million points of data per second, and your conscious mind can only handle like 7. So, and while those aren't the exact numbers, it really is that disparate. So your subconscious is going to speak to an emotion, you're going to feel that emotion, and then your conscious mind typically is just trying to justify what it feels. But if you actually hit the pause button and go, I'm going to verbalize what I'm feeling. Now, this is where, dude, you're going to need a healthy relationship, because you're going to have to admit insecurities. And one of the rules of engagement that we have is never, ever, 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 under any circumstance, for any reason whatsoever, can you weaponize your partner's insecurity. So if she tells me something 6 years ago, and then we later have a fight, and I realize, I can win this fight if I throw this insecurity back in her face that she told me. We never do that. We've never done that. We will never do that. It's so fucking dangerous to your relationship. So
it's hard to come back from that.
That is so perfectly said. It's hard to come back from that ever, right? To build that trust back up. So if you've ever done that historically, it's time to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm never doing this again, and then just be religious about it. Okay, so I know I'm never going to weaponize her insecurities against her. She's never going to weaponize mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm translating this emotion from my subconscious. I'm going to articulate exactly, no matter how petty, no matter how much is based in insecurity, I'm going to articulate exactly how what she said is making me feel. And
feel, let's just emphasize that.
100%. So yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's not you're wrong. It's just, this is how that's making me feel. When you say that, I feel judged. When you say that, I feel inadequate or whatever. Like, you're just going to walk the person through in real time how that's making you feel, and your best ability to go back and identify why you feel that way, what the source of that is. And then if you both, without judgment, then hear what the other person is going through, you're not weaponizing that or using that against them, you can actually figure out like why that person's being emotionally triggered. You're not saying whether they should be emotionally triggered or not, right? Because the other person, of course, is going to say you should be emotionally triggered by this. So that's like going to be the default stance, and that's where people end up in these standoffs is you shouldn't feel that way, I wouldn't feel that way, but yet that person does feel that way. And so
it feel
creates
judged for feeling that way,
which makes them entrenched. So literally we would do this, like, oh, when you say that, that makes me feel this. Whoa, like I didn't mean that. I'm feeling really judged by what you're saying. Okay, let me try to better articulate what I'm saying. Your ability to stay calm in that is really, really critical.
And we have messed it up. We've, fumbled through this whole process to get to this point. So initially it was like, well, I feel like this. And it's like, okay, that doesn't work. You can't come at it with aggression. Okay, well, I feel like this. Now, as much as possible, I definitely try to say, I know you may not have meant to make me feel X, Y, and Z, because that allows them to like bring down their barriers, because no one wants to be told what they've just done wrong. And especially when it's like the freaking love of your life, the last thing you want to think is that you've upset them. So it's like knowing that, okay, they recognize I didn't mean to upset them. So trying to preface that by saying, you may not have meant to make me feel like this, but in that word, it triggered me and it did make me feel X, Y, and Z. And then he can come back to say, okay, I actually didn't mean to do that. Let's explore another word or another way of having this discussion. Or sometimes though, he's like, yeah, that was actually the feeling I was going for. And it's not like he was trying to be cruel, but I'm like, I felt like you would, I can't even think of an example. It's probably more work related. I know, even if it was like, when you were saying I was emotional, it made me feel like I have, I'm upset beyond where I really should be. Oh God, I'm trying this terrible example. Can you think of an example?
Vaguely. So if you're doing something and I think that your response is disproportionate to the reality of the situation, and you say that makes me feel like you're saying I'm overreacting, I would say yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Right. Okay, that's a perfect example. And in those moments, that's actually
without
really
saying you're a bad person, but it's like where people really get into trouble is you're going to you will ultimately hit a baseline where you realize either we've resolved the issue or this is a collision of values. Mm-hmm. I don't want to derail on collision of values right now, but if you hit a point where it's like one person is saying, hey, my value system is such that I should be able to react as big and as hysterical as I want because I need to get these emotions out, I need to externalize them, and the other person feels like, no, this should always be in proportion to what's just happened, and you should be working on emotional control and reining yourself in, and you can both do what's called steel man the other position. So you're saying, here's what I hear you saying, I understand it, but I disagree. And once you get to the point where you both acknowledge, yeah, you really do understand my position, you're able to say it back to me, it's very clear, it's very concise, so you do understand it, but we don't agree on this, then that's what we call a collision of values. And collision of values aren't easy to get by. You just have to process through it. I don't want to derail because we have more questions coming in, but
if you're just joining us, we are answering questions live, so drop them in the comments below. I'm Lisa Bilyeu, this is Tom Bilyeu.
We co-founded Impact Theory, and we also co-founded Quest Nutrition for anybody looking for pedigree, and we've been together for 19 and a half years and married for 17.
All right, so it's shout outs to Jakarta, Montreal, Scotland, California, Detroit, South Africa, Hong Kong, and Bolivia. Wow, that's amazing.
Not bad.
Thank you guys for joining us. Okay, next question. What are some stress coping strategies so you don't take it...
Don't take it out on your partner, basically.
Don't take it out on your partner.
So this is such a... I'll give you a few answers. All of them should be beyond self-evident, and I do worry that people often discard the self-evident stuff because they want like a magic bullet. The only thing I've ever encountered that is truly, it is the magic bullet you're looking for, and we'll debate this because she doesn't do it, is meditation. Meditation is, so I said at the top of this, humans are having a biological experience. Once you embrace that your brain does certain things and that certain physical states change the neurochemistry of your brain, and that ultimately your entire experience is a VR experience created by your brain. There is actually a region of your brain called the deep limbic system. Its sole job is not to tell you what is happening, it's to tell you how to feel about what is happening. For me, that was such a breakthrough. When I say this, I don't know that people resonate with it the way that I do. But once I realized there's a part of my brain that's going, oh, this is bad, man. This is fucking terrible. Then I realized, whoa, what makes it decide that something is good or bad? So there's an amazing Shakespeare quote, put at the center of your soul. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Your brain, namely the deep limbic system, is going to decide whether something is positive or negative. Now you can hijack that and you can tell it what's positive and negative. So that is really important. And that's where meditation comes in. There are physiological hooks that will change your brain state. One of them is diaphragm breathing. Okay, that's what meditation ultimately is all about. Sit comfortably. There's no right or wrong way. I have found that it works to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. That lowers my, what I call background radiation. So the background radiation of stress and anxiety where you're like, I don't even know what's bothering me, but I feel like fucking weird. Diaphragm breathing brings that down. The next thing, exercise. Same thing, it's a physiological hook. So You get massive endorphins from working out. I do not. I still work out for a whole host of reasons. But meditation is huge for me. So try meditating, try working out, try working out as hard as you're willing to push yourself. I think you will find it makes a big difference. And then touch, physical cuddling.
I was going to say that if you weren't going to touch on it. Yeah.
Please.
I have tried meditation. I am not good at it yet. But I don't beat myself up over it, and I started to notice I was beating myself up over the fact that I can't meditate, and so I was like, okay, just get in touch with yourself. What are the things that you love doing that puts you in a different state? And it is music, and it is working out, because so yesterday I started to feel a little, I wouldn't say anxiety, but overwhelmed, because I had so much to do. And that was when I was like, okay, this is all in your control. I have the control to change the chemicals in my body and in my brain right now. So I switched off my phone. I put on very, very loud 90s music, and I started belting out that music to the top of my lungs, and I didn't care who, like, our dog was barking because it was like, who the hell is this? So, but I was like, I know this works for me, and so I don't want to give any justification on why I'm not meditating. This is what works for me. This puts me in a different state and makes me happy, so I'm just going to do it. So what are those things that you know deep down actually does affect you? And one thing as your partner is like, let them know, hey, I'm feeling really stressed. I just need 30 minutes to myself. It's one thing we talk about a lot, is having selfish time. Like right now, because you're quarantined, you kind of feel like maybe you're on top of each other all the time when you have kids and you're handling a job and you're trying to be there for everybody. But it is so important. It is so important, guys, to take selfish time, which means that it's just time for you. Do whatever you want, whether that's, take a bath, sing to the top of your lungs, watch terrible television, whatever it is that's going to change the chemicals in your body to make you feel better. So I had said to him yesterday, babe, I just need time. I'm switching off my phone. I switched off my phone, and for 30 minutes, I was belting at the top of my lungs, and I was singing wonderful 90s music, and I felt great. So
my sister sent me a text, who's quarantined with us, sent me a text saying, hey, I hear shouting. Is everything okay? I thought that was amazing.
Me singing. Okay, answering questions. This question is from Elena Valencia Alzate. How do we help each other to balance while having to work from home and having our children at home? It becomes overwhelming since we can't go out.
So I think the biggest thing that people need to do is a division of labor. So you need to carve space for each other. What Lisa was saying about selfish time is huge. Even in all of this, whatever your selfish time is, like if I was in a house that, and I had a bunch of kids, so I know what I need. I need to be alone, isolated. That for me is such a big deal. So selfish time for me, if I was in a house full of people with a bunch of kids, would be I need 15 minutes, 30 minutes if we can swing it, where I would just be under a blanket, literally, with headphones on, listening to the sounds of usually a thunderstorm. I just find that insanely relaxing. So that would be huge for me.
But how would they actually go about doing
division of labor? So you have to say to your partner, hey, I need this 15 minutes or this 30 minutes. So during that time, and I'm going to do the same for you. So during that time, you've got the kids, you think about that, whatever they need, it's going to be on you. And then we'll do vice versa. So I think it's better to have an extreme moment where you have to deal with all of the kids and then moments of absolute silence and peace versus everybody sort of always dealing with their half.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to spend the majority of your time there, but I think it's better to carve out.
Well, actually, so that's the thing, is like, make sure that you actually do sit down and go over all the things that need to be done in the house, because there may have been, someone may have stayed at home, someone may be going out to work, you may have typically both gone out to work, so things have changed. So we've worked together and lived together for so long that we've kind of got a little flow, but I would sit down, if things had massively changed because of this quarantine, sit down and lay out everything together. Think of this as a doubles match in tennis and not just a singles where you're on opposite sides of the net, like you're on the same side, guys. So what are the things that we agree on that need to be done in the house, or that need to be done? Okay, I have to work 7 hours, you have to work 7 hours, whatever it is. The plates need cleaning, laundry needs done, the kids need feeding. And we literally would do it like a business. Split it up. What are the things I'm better at? Those are the tasks I'll take. What are the things you're better at? You take those tasks. And then lay out your days and say, okay, from 1 to 1:30, I'm going to take my selfish time. And so there's no like, oh my God, I can't believe, you're not doing your half. It's like, no, you can do your half still and take that time. But like,
and if you want to know a place where collision of values is going to happen, it's going to be here. Because if she's telling me to clean something that I don't think needs to be cleaned or doesn't need to be cleaned that frequently, this is where things get problematic. So you're going to need to agree on what actually needs to be done. But the key is you have to map it all out. You have to discuss it.
Correct. Because what will happen is over time, you may not say anything. And the person who, let's say, is cleaning the plates, because he hates cleaning plates, so he'll be like, okay, I'm fine, I'll clean the plates. And then 1, 2, 3 days, maybe not a big deal. 1 week, 2 weeks, we have no idea how long we're going to be here. So you want to set that up from the beginning. Set each other up for success. Set your relationship up for success. Set your household up for success. And lay out exactly. So he'd be like, I don't want to wash plates. And so he'll probably say, I'll use paper plates and I will recycle. So you may have to discuss that, but you don't want those little things to start building up over time. And before you know it, in 2 and 3 weeks, you're at each other's throats. And it's because he kept leaving plates everywhere and he wasn't washing up, right? Just as the...
And say if something's bothering you, say it immediately. Don't wait.
And then when you say it, don't judge the person for saying it.
And don't be aggressive about it.
Don't be aggressive, you're right. So if you were coming to me, you can't be aggressive. Like, I don't want a freaking clean plate. Be like, babe, this isn't a value system of mine. And then I can't pass judgment on him being honest, even if I think he's crazy. So,
and if you guys are talking about things together and establishing rules together, so it's nobody imposing rules on the other person, it's, hey, what should our rules be? And then sit down and define them. It'll go a long way.
Exactly. All right.
I actually don't understand that question.
Have you started any passion as a couple since the quarantine started?
Does that mean sex?
No, I don't think so.
What does that mean?
Basically, have you started a passion together, us two together, since quarantine?
Okay, like salsa dancing. Is that what we mean?
Sure. So we haven't... So the one thing that we love to do, that we don't do often, is we build Gundam together.
Man, if anybody in this feed, I want to know. Does anybody know what Gundam is?
They're like... Think of it as like 3D puzzles, but a robot. And so we try to do, in 19 years together, we try to do different things like that. We play together, we learn Greek together, because I'm Greek. We've done things like that. So actually, we were just talking before we came live, like, should we do a Greek day? Like, how do we bring fun to this like situation? So I was saying, like, maybe we'll do like a barbecue and play Greek music and we'll only speak Greek. Like, coming up with those sort of things are really fun. And so anyway, we haven't done Gundam in a while. And so I was like, well, what are the things that we could do? And so I don't know if that's like really a passion together.
And they do mean passion project.
Oh.
So I will say that maybe isn't a super fair question for us. So our business, Impact Theory, is our passion. It's a media studio, so we're taking more time to watch movies and high quality TV shows, the kinds of things that we want to create. And that actually is something that we do very little of when we aren't quarantined. So that's been a lot of fun.
I just thought, so the one thing actually that we have done recently that I have specifically and actively started doing because of quarantine, because I want to look back at this time and be like, do you remember when? So it's like a positive and not a negative. Yeah. And so we started taking baths together. And you're not a bath man.
No, this is definitely for her.
This is definitely for me.
Doesn't hurt that she's nude, I won't lie. But...
And that's the thing, right? So it's like, oh, it's actually something new we don't do together. It's something where it's like, actually feel like that would connect us together. And I know him and I know, okay, well, getting nude is actually something that's going to have him say yes. So so it was definitely strategic. But now it's like we've taken baths together since the quarantine. And I know that in a year, in 2 years, it will be like, oh, do you remember when we did baths together with bubble bath? I went with bubble bath and like bath salts, and so I'm making like a bit of an event from it. And now Wookie, our dog, wants in the bath, and it's a whole thing. But it's like the family time, so it's not really passion, but it definitely is creating something that when you look back right now, because guys, at some point this will be over. We don't know when, but it will. So are you going to look back at this time and say, oh my God, that really brought us closer together? We did such fun things. We built Gundam. which we love and don't have time to do, we had baths together, or are you going to say this is a time where we wrang each other's neck and it was the breaking point of our relationship? The great news is right now it's your choice.
Yeah, it's going to be easy to find the bad in what's happening right now, right? I mean, it is a deadly disease. It is people being stuck. The economy is it's going to be a hard rebound from this.
Oh, we have a shout out. Someone knew who Gundam was. So shout out to
Gwen Malabed. I'm very impressed.
Nice.
I'm very impressed. Doubly impressed that it was a woman.
I don't have any Gundam.
That's amazing.
Here, but, amazing. Okay, so we've got another question. So this
Christetta.
Is it so Christetta? Anyway. How do you become emotionally sober in the first place, given such an emotionally stressful pandemic? Very
All
good
right,
question.
you say how you do it, and I'll say how I do it.
Oh,
because it's actually, I think, quite different.
Interesting. Huh. Okay, so how I started to do it is always it was in reflection. So once I started to get all stressed and we had these arguments, and afterwards I sit by myself and I'm like, okay, that didn't actually help our relationship. I don't feel better for it. And you know how you have those moments and feelings where you're like, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. So it's
never had that.
Yeah, never. So it's always been in reflection. So in reflection, I'm like, because eventually you will be emotionally sober. So in those moments, go, how do I wish I had handled it? What do I wish I had said? And what are the tactics I can implement next time so that I don't get to that moment? And so,
now, is there anything around this being an emotionally stressful pandemic that changes your tactic?
Hasn't? No. So like yesterday, I was feeling overwhelmed and I started to, I can't remember how it started, but I said something to you and I was like irritable. And I was like, okay, I know that I'm being irritable right now. So what are the things I've told myself to become emotionally sober
in the past
during this irritability that I'm feeling? Okay, I told myself, Lisa, you have to walk away. Right? I just know that about myself. I have to walk away. So if it's, I just need time, I just need to walk.
Can I push you a little bit
Yeah,
here?
please.
Because yesterday you didn't walk away.
No.
You actually were able to recenter in the conversation.
Yeah, actually you're right. But did you notice I walked away and then 3
immediately
seconds
came
later
back.
I came back.
Interesting.
Because I've trained myself for so long.
That's such a trigger.
That walking away, okay, means that you're pissed off, means that you're upset. And now I've gotten to the point where I've got better at walking away so let me back up. So super emotional, told myself when you're super emotional, just walk away. Don't try and coax yourself through it. Walk away until you're starting to feel your heart rate go low, until you're starting to feel your breath is coming back. You're not getting that like in your heart. So I have trained myself, walk away, like literally just shouting in my head, you told yourself you're going to walk away. So now I've gotten to a point where I've been able to walk away enough where that time period of having walked away has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. And so yesterday, actually, we haven't even spoken about this. So yesterday when I walked away, I took a deep breath and I was like, but you know he loves you. You know what he just said that irritated you is coming from a good place. And you walking away right now, I've gotten to the point where I want to thank him for being supportive for me walking away, and then not almost, I don't want him to feel like I'm dismissing him, and I'm getting calm already, so I want to walk back and say thank you for being honest. And so I'd gone to that point where I was comfortable to come back and actually say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, thank you for that.
You were gone so briefly that it almost didn't register that you had walked. It was literally like, this is what it was.
But,
it was so fast.
But that's also like if you use it like a game, right? I think you had said it earlier where you would be
it's
mad.
Practice, not performance.
Yeah, so it's like don't beat yourself up that you may have slipped up or you may have been frustrated and said something or you've walked away for 3 hours. Like don't feel bad about it. I use it as a game, kind of like when you're running on the treadmill, right? Like how quick can you run that mile? It's like use it as a game. How quickly can you get better? How quickly can you get better? And every time you do one thing and it's slightly better, you've gone from 3 hours to 2 hours. Like I celebrate those small wins. And so yesterday, I'm glad you said that actually, because I want to celebrate the fact that now I'm at the point where I had walked away and I had to come back. But I don't beat myself up that I still got frustrated in the first place. I just see it as a game and I do these steps. Now you.
So I'll take a more pandemic centric approach, which is in this time, the way that I stay even keel and calm is to remind myself of a very Buddhist notion of this too shall pass. or if we have any sports fans out there, Phil Jackson has a very similar idea that he says things come together, things fall apart. So it's temporary. So whatever we're going through is temporary. If the economy has a really hard time, I promise you it will come back. So even something that's measured in years is ultimately temporary. And that gives me a lot of comfort. One, I know that being successful is temporary. I know that failing is temporary. I know that COVID-19 is temporary. It's all temporary. And so there's a big stress relief that comes with that for me. So that's been huge in terms of staying even keel. And then meditation is just huge. It is a physiological thing, a way of staying there. So breathing from my diaphragm. So where yours is way more in your head and thoughtful, mine is partly that, this too shall pass. And then the other part is physical, of diaphragm breathing, spending my time meditating, make sure that I create that quiet space to generate at a physical level calm.
Oh, one thing I also just thought of, to change our physicality, what we do is we've told each other, okay, when we're mad or we're pissed or, with each other, whatever, if one of us in that moment can force ourselves to do, ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Baby!
So we have spoken about this. We recognize that changing our body is going to change how we feel. Doing a different tone, right? And then forcing your face. Now look, it's not freaking easy. It is hard.
It's the last thing you want to do in that moment.
Yeah,
but it's
the last
so
thing.
powerful.
It's so powerful. So like let's say we've bickered and we've had, we're frustrated with each other. But I'm the one that's maybe in that moment a little more emotionally stable, or him, whoever. You walk in the room and it's hard. And what I do is I count down. So I walk in and it's like, okay, when I count to 3, just walk in that room. Even if you're still mad, even if you're still pissed, walk in that room and do it. And so, 1, 2, 3, baby! And because we've made an agreement that if one of us do it, rule of engagement, that if one of us does it, it has to be reciprocated, even if you're not feeling it. So because we've done that and we've come up with a strategy to break that, it has made such a difference.
Yeah, attitude is contagious, emotion is contagious. So if one of you flips that script, you can let it be contagious for you, and so that you allow yourself to elevate and be happy and be playful. And it's crazy how it changes it, but it did require that rule of engagement to say, if one of us extends like that, it's a very vulnerable position to come in and to be playful and to let go of whatever it is you were arguing about. And when it's reciprocated, it's pretty rad. And of course, it's hard to be the one to do it first. And then sometimes you really don't want to reciprocate, but because you have the rule of engagement, you have to. And when you do, you never think, man, I really wish I had stayed angry. And that was part of what started all of this. I never once, ever, after spending 8 hours being pissed off about something, thought, that was a really good use of time.
Yeah.
So because it always seemed dumb, once I was finally out of that place, we just thought there's got to be ways to get us out of it faster.
And it really did start from, we went and watched, we were one of our worst arguments when we were still engaged. I don't even think we were married, and we were living in England, and we had such an argument on the way to the movies. And we argued, and then the movie started. So we're like, oh shit, we're just fine. We'll just watch the movie. And it was Rush Hour 2. We were laughing so much in that movie that by the end of it, we were over the argument. We discussed it afterwards, but our emotions completely changed. And I think that was a big key for us when we were like, nothing changed between us except for our brain chemistry. So we can actually now discuss this and get through it. But before the movie had started, we were going back and forth and arguing. So it's like, that really is a difference in brain chemistry. So how do we force it in situations where you can't just play a movie for 2 hours and to make you laugh? All right, so we've got questions on questions. How can couples respect each other's working from home style while under lockdown?
Without judgment. I mean, that's just, you nailed that earlier. Everybody's going to do their own thing. Now, the more that you talk about it, the better. So if there's something that one person is doing, if they're spreading out into a space that you don't want them to spread out into, she hates working in the bedroom. I don't mind it at all. It makes no difference to me. On my writing days, I like to have absolute silence. I do not want to be interrupted. So I'm going to go in a private space. I'm going to find something away from everybody because she is very opportunistic. So if she sees me, she can't help herself but to ask me a question, even if I have my fuck off headphones on. So even though we have a rule of engagement around those headphones, so just to remove the temptation, I will sequester myself. So we talk about it. We know what, everything means. We know what the rules are around when somebody can be interrupted, not interrupted, where to spread out, how long things can be left. Like, she doesn't like things being left out. So if I'm working from the table, I can't just leave everything on the table for the next day. I've got to clear it away. So having those conversations, that's a huge thing. But you can't think, oh, the way I do it is right and the way they do it is wrong. You just have to figure out where the compromise is, what's meaningful to each person, and then give in a spirit of generosity, right? So for me, I would 100% leave things out on the table, but I know that bothers her. So it's like, okay, well, how much am I willing to clean up? I'll close my laptop, but I'm going to leave my laptop there. I'll take all the ancillary stuff away, but I'm not going to reset up my laptop every day. It's just a level of inefficiency that I can't tolerate. But in the spirit of generosity, I want to give her all the things that I can bear to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And sitting down, I'm very logistical. So I'd sit down and say, okay, what are all the things that how do you want to work? What is that ideal situation for you? And then I write mine down. And then you see how they can coexist. And then going back to what you were saying is doesn't mean that you have to always just give up everything, right? Because he was just like, no, that's not efficient. And in him saying that, I'm just oh, but I really want it to be clean or, neat. But then I just go to, okay, well, what do I know about him? I know that he prides himself on being efficient. And so it's not about me. It's just about his value system that I have to respect. And so it's not oh my God, I can't believe it. So basically what you would say, neither is right or wrong, but make sure that you're also being very honest about what you need and then what you're willing to go out and what you're not.
Word.
So if you guys are just joining us, we are Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. We have been together for 19 years. We are answering questions live on how to survive and allow this quarantine situation to actually make your relationship stronger instead of weaker. So we are answering questions, drop them in below. And also want to do shout outs. So let us know where you guys are joining us from. All right, so this is interesting. So for couples who are quarantined separately, how do you stay connected in a long distance relationship? Well, the great news is we have done long distance, me being British, him being American. When we first met, we spent about a year and a half doing the long distance thing. So we actually have experience on this.
Yeah.
And we didn't have Skype.
Yeah, we didn't have Skype, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have anything that people would use nowadays. We didn't have text messaging.
It was expensive phone calls or email.
Yeah, long distance was a real thing. So this was basically a year and a half primarily over email. So whatever tools are available to you, and I highly encourage you to set aside very predictable time that you know exactly when it's going to happen, you know how much time you're going to have together, and to do something with a video component. It makes a huge difference. But you have to schedule the time. Don't think, oh, catch as catch can, I'll call you when I can, I'll call you right before bed. None of that. Prioritize time when you're at high energy, good energy, where you can give them your entire and complete focus.
And there are a couple of things that I have actually done with my family in England, which I love. And we did it actually when you were traveling once. So schedule tea time, right? Or whatever that thing is that you guys can do together, whether it's dinner, and actually Skype, get your dinner, sit down, maybe put your laptop in front of you so it's like they're sitting across from you. Also, we've done movie night before where we set up a movie. So on my end, I set up a movie, he sets up a movie. And I have my laptop next to me. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. And we basically FaceTime. So I did it on my laptop because that way he's much bigger as well. Because I think that I don't know, for me that feels like I'm more connected than on the tiny phone. So I set up my laptop. He had his movie and we're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, play. And so we ended up watching a movie together, but from a distance. And obviously you have to put each other on mute so you don't hear the volume. But then you every so often wave or be like, oh, I need to pause. But there was something about that.
Actually, it was really fun.
Yeah, so maybe it can be your favorite movie. Maybe it can be a comedy. Maybe it can be a romantic movie, whatever you like. But things like that make you feel like you're in that same space, at least for me, is super important.
Yeah, it was very, very effective. I was surprised how much.
Or play games, that would be another thing that I'd want to do with you, playing games. I'm sure.
And come in with good energy.
Yeah.
Don't Try not to bring whatever mood you were in before. Come in with high energy. You have limited time to spend with that person. You don't get sort of all the little moments that you would otherwise get if you're cohabiting. So come in, positive energy, sort of let things go that might have been bothering you before that, and come in ready to connect. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to share if you're having a hard time, of course, but you want to, as much as possible, bring good energy to make it a positive, to reinforce that connection and joy and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question.
Next question. What are you
Oh, we actually have some shout outs.
Oh,
so we've got Malaysia, Sweden, New York City, Philippines, Florida, Las Vegas, Greece, Yasu, and Wales and Denmark. So welcome everybody to the feed. Much appreciate everybody joining us. For couples out of work under financial constraints, how can they empower and motivate their partners to keep going? All right, this is a big one. I know a lot of people are going to find themselves there. So this is where being cooperative is going to be a really big deal. There, of course, whenever you have that level of uncertainty, there's going to be a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety. And this is where you are going to have to help each other stay focused, because everybody gets it. This is serious. We need to take it seriously, and we need to move quickly to make sure that we get ourselves out of this situation. One, depending on where you're at, make sure you check into what the government aid is. I know that a lot of places are doing some pretty amazing things for people. So know that there's going to be people there to help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, which is where a lot of people are going to struggle. They don't want to ask. Make sure that you're not afraid to help. Make sure that you're communicating. So there's a reason that everybody that has a long and thriving relationship is going to tell you that communication is the key. So there's going to be fears and anxieties. You want to support each other through that. Don't ask each other to fake it and not be able to say the things that are making them insecure. And now here's the tricky part, but don't allow each other to stay there. Because if you're just staying in the negative headspace, if all you do is talk about your fears and insecurities, that's going to be your loop. So you need to, as quickly as possible, get into a solution-oriented mindset. You've got to get into problem solving. Once you're into problem solving, then it gets interesting. So a game that we play is called No Bullshit, What Would It Take? So no bullshit. During a quarantine, what does it take to generate revenue? So this is a time where the fact that we have the internet is just a lifesaver. And so I'd be looking for ways where you can immediately generate income over the internet. If you haven't already looked into Upwork, check out Upwork. That's a very tactical thing that you can do right now. People that are on Upwork are certainly employers, are people that are looking for people that are a distributed workforce. So figuring out what skill that you have that can be translated over the internet, and then looking for work in ways that you can. So again, just to recap, do not spend your time just focused on the fear and the anxiety and the woe is me. All of that's real. I get it. I'm just saying it doesn't serve you. So you immediately want to switch over to a solution-oriented mindset, getting into problem-solving mode, and then start doing things that translate over the internet.
That's amazing. But what if it's your partner, let's say, because that's, how do you empower your partner? So everything you've done, let's say someone's like, yes, I'm on board, I get it, but their partner is still staying in the fear, the negative space. What advice do you give in order to help bring them out?
Yeah, so number one, don't match their energy. So the way that the analogy that we use is, if I'm ever dropped to my knees, I am not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for you to get on your knees with me, to cry, to put an arm around me and tell me everything is going to be okay. I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is empathy. I want you to understand me. I don't want you to be judgmental. I don't want you to be horrified that I've been rocked to my knees. I want you to extend a hand, encourage me, remind me of what I'm capable of, help me back to my feet, brush me off, love me, but remind me that I can get out of this, to help me get into a solution-oriented mindset, to help me with the problem solving. Some of this, though, is going to require that love. It's going to require that moment of just listening, right? If they're in a mode for a minute, we're not going to stay there, but for a minute, it's nice to be understood. It's nice to know that that person empathizes, they get where you're at. I don't want them to embody where I'm at. I don't want them to be sad with me, but I need to know that I'm understood. I need to know that I'm not being judged. And so it's what I call just sit. When somebody's in a headspace that is not productive, You want to just sit, just be with them, love them, be compassionate, understand where they're at. And then we can slowly migrate them out by remaining positive ourselves, by beginning to talk about solutions. And this is where rules of engagement come in. Because if you both agree ahead of time that this family has a growth mindset, motherfucker, that's just plain and simple. The way it is. To be in this house is to have a growth mindset, to prioritize a growth mindset. Doesn't mean that you don't need a minute to be heard. It doesn't mean that you can't for a minute be like, whoa, like this really sucks and I'm super scared. But it does mean together we're going to shift out of that. Because if you've agreed ahead of time, that's how we act. That's what this family is about. Then it's like when it's done with love and compassion to remind that person about a growth mindset, to remind them that, hey, what we do is we focus on solutions. Then it's like, yeah, you're right. We did agree upon that. If you didn't agree upon it ahead of time, it's real hard because you're almost certainly going to have a collision of values. That person values like wallowing in it and focusing on how unfair things are, and it's going to be tough to get them out of that. So rules of engagement ahead of time, right now, start talking about it. And if you didn't and you find yourself stuck in this position right now, then we're going to need to walk people through the logic. So this isn't an easy game to play, but it looks something like this. The other person is really upset. They're really afraid. They're stuck there. They're not wanting to come out. So then I'm going to start asking very simple questions. What's your goal? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to see yourself? I don't know, because that almost certainly will be their answer. Okay, do you want to be happy? Do you want to be angry? Let's just start with an end emotional state. And they're going to do something like this. Well, of course I want to be happy, obviously. Like, why are you even asking me that? Okay, fantastic. So I want that as well. I maybe want something a little more akin to a lasting happiness, which maybe we call fulfillment, which is far more resilient than momentary happiness. But cool, we want to be happy, we want to be upbeat, we both like that's a shared goal. All right, what do we know to be true, right, about the human mind? Okay, what you focus on, you get more of. Rad. All right, so how are we, because it's real, like we're in a really difficult position. I don't want to deny that. But what can we focus on that might begin to shift our energy? So you can see where I'm going, right? I'm going to ask very simple questions that are traps, because of course they're going to say that they want to be happy. Of course they're going to say they want to be successful. Of course they're going to say that they want a solution, like all of these things. And then you're going to get them. A growth mindset is the best place to be because it's actually effective. So there's no like, oh, it's just morally better. Nope, a growth mindset is effective because it puts you in a solution-oriented mindset. It says you may not know how to do it yet, but you can learn how to do it. And once you can get somebody shifted into a learning mindset, that taking action is going to be the thing that solves their problem, now all of a sudden we can begin to migrate them where we need them to be in order to be in a better headspace in order to actually take the action to be successful.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that is everything that he just said is spot on, but also don't worry that you don't always act the same. So me and him are different people. We act differently when a situation happens and we talk through things, but I used to feel bad that I would feel like and get upset over things and he wouldn't. Like he's super easy to brush things off. He doesn't take things personally.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass, right? And I actually get that. But I actually initially, my initial reaction to things is to get emotional or stressed or something like that. And so we've spoken about the differences in us and the differences in how we react. And again, not one's right or wrong. And I had to make sure that I realized that getting emotional doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make me less than. It doesn't make him better because he doesn't get emotional. So I had to distance myself from that emotionally. That's how we're different. And then also, but I would put in rules of engagement for myself. Okay, I feel it. It's just how I process it. I would talk to you and it's like, sometimes I just need time. So what we'd agreed is now I kind of tell you, I just need an hour. I want an hour to put on sad music, to feel shitty about myself, to moan, to complain to myself. I don't normally do it out loud. But I just need the hour. I need the hour to watch terrible TV and like, woe is me. But as soon as that hour is done, I promise you, I'm going to snap back and I'm going to put on that positive mindset hat and I'm going to figure out how to get out of this. And we've discussed that and now that's how we work. I just need 30 minutes. And you respect where I come from. I respect how you have to deal with things. And that was a massive thing for me, at least.
Word.
All right. This is from Isabel.
This is fascinating.
Isabel Lopez, how do you talk about money? My boyfriend is the only one working and he doesn't share information about how the money is spent.
So that changed for us over time. So this is a tricky one because you're saying that it's your boyfriend. If you guys were married, then I would probably have a different response. So I will walk you through how things went for us in the beginning. In the beginning, she knows where I'm going. In the beginning, she was super weird about talking about money. Super weird.
But let me tell you, things come from how you were brought up. So I was brought up, you never discuss money. Like my dad.
Even in your family.
Even in your family. If I was to ask my dad something, you don't talk about it. He doesn't answer. Dad, how much money do you make? Nope, you don't talk about it. So I was just brought up that you don't talk about money. So here it is. I meet this guy. I'm dating him for a week. And he turns around and he's like, how much money did your dad give you? For pocket money. Because I wasn't working at the time and I was living in LA. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just asked. That's so rude. And so I was so horrified. I actually judged you for a bit for asking me.
Yeah, of course. And that's actually important for you to recognize is you and your boyfriend have different values around money. So until you discuss it, it's like you're thinking, well, obviously it should be this way. And he's thinking, well, obviously it should be this way. And you guys are disconnecting on how it should obviously be. So you're going to have to define your own rules. Now, depending on how long you've been together, if he's your boyfriend, but you've been together for 10 years, then this, and you live together, let's say, to really complicate things, then that gets a little weird for me. It's trust to me is the number one most important thing in a relationship. And if you're not being open and honest with each other and you live together and you've decided to share your lives and all that, that to me is just a mistake. So I will give you my sort of best practices around money for committed couples who have decided to share their lives forever and they're together, regardless of whether you actually got married or not. I'm just saying, if you've only been together for 6 months, it would be very different. But assuming that this is a long-term committed relationship, we were in this together and we're gonna legitimately share our lives, then what we did was we created separate bank accounts. Now, at the time, for the first 7 years of our marriage, I was the only one that worked. So
we'd agreed that I was going to stay home and support you.
Correct. So that was what I wanted, and it was sort of what you wanted, at least in the beginning.
That's a whole
anyway,
story.
Literally, we could do a whole live about that. But so in the beginning, it was, hey, this is what we've chosen to do as a couple. So even though I'm the one at work, you facilitate that. So she was at home. She was the CEO of Bilyeu Enterprises, is how we referred to it.
Which was basically our puppies and our bills.
Yeah, but it alleviated a lot out of my life. She was preparing my meals, taking care of my clothes, setting them out. Like, it was amazing. And so I saw it as it's 50-50. So
we'd agreed on that as well.
Correct.
Which was important.
Correct. And we were poor at the time. So this was definitely not like, oh, we had so much money. What the fuck does it matter? It was not easy. And we had the same amount of spending money. So we had money for bills, we had money that we were saving, and then we had money that we could spend. Now, your spending money was the only thing that you didn't have to negotiate or discuss with the other person. You could literally light it on fire if you wanted, because I wanted to be able to buy things that she thought was stupid, like video games or whatever. And I wanted to know, there's no judgment. If I want to save my spending money for 3 or 4 months and then buy something that she thinks is patently absurd, I have every right to do that, and vice versa. And that was really, really useful for us, because then there was no frustration over the spending money. We got the same amount. We knew our bills were taken care of. We knew that we were saving some money. And then we knew that, I could spend whatever I wanted on whatever I wanted.
But for me though, because I wasn't working, going out and getting a paycheck, yeah, thank you. Because I wasn't going out getting a paycheck, I started to feel guilty, right? Like if I wanted to buy something just for myself, like I saw a nice pair of socks or whatever, I would actually feel guilty. Oh my God, but I'm not actually making the money. And that was very difficult for me. So we had to sit down, and that's how we established this, because I was like, I don't want to feel guilty every time I'm spending money. We've agreed that we're both in it together, but I still feel bad. And so we just sat down and broke it out and agreed on how much money do we agree that we are going to put into savings? How much money do we agree that we're going to have as our spending money? And then if I want to do whatever I want with it, I can go do it. And we just agreed. And I kept a little journal and I would write down every penny, and we would rent movies from Blockbuster at the time and write down whose movie it was. But like, you just have to get that specific, because the one thing I never wanted was for something to just stack up. We call it dust settling. You never want one little little thing to happen and the next thing and the next thing. Before you know it, you're just like at each other's throats, or I'm just feeling terribly guilty. So we actually came up with absolutely rules of how we were going to spend that money.
All right, we have 30 seconds to answer this last question. This is from Yanis Lalis. How do you manage to be aware of what and how you feel at the moment something happens? It takes a lot of time. It's about developing self-awareness. You have to be really honest with yourself to say, oh, I'm feeling something interesting. And in that moment, just train yourself. I'm feeling something. That's step one. Step two is to begin to dissect. When I felt that, what was driving that? And this is where you have to be incredibly honest with yourself, because until you can admit your insecurities, you're probably never going to develop self-awareness. All right.
Okay, you had like 1 minute to answer that.
I had literally 40 seconds. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. Shout out to Goalcast. Thank you guys for having us. And you can follow me at Tom Bilyeu.
And you can follow me at Lisa Bilyeu, mainly on Instagram. But we did actually fairly recently just start our, so I have a show called Women of Impact, and we've recently started to do couples episodes. So if you want to see more of us together discussing things like this, go over to YouTube / because we're quarantined and so I can't get guests on, so he has been my Women of Impact guest.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'm assuming at some point on Goalcast and they'll just disconnect. Yeah, so who knows. But all right, thanks, guys.